Welcome back into the Mid-Norfolk cottage garden. We're into the middle of August now and we have got so much to do in this garden. This year's been so warm and so wet. We've not had any of the droughts to hold back the growth on the meadow in the orchard, and just look how much growth we've got. Not only is it thick and heavy, but with the tropical downpour rains we've been having, a lot of it's gone over and is almost crushed on its side, so trimming this is going to be quite a job for me. I'm going to work backwards from the paths in the middle that we've already knocked through, keep those low down and keep mowing them, and gradually extend them outwards. Little at a time. I'll do this job over several weeks, try and get this back to lawn ready for the spring bulbs next December, January and February. Very last bit of colours just in the climbing or rambling roses we've got on this framework. Browning off now. It's the end of them for this season. We'll get little late flushes, tiny little bits of colour, but nothing like the big flushes we get on these throughout August, and they have been spectacular this year with the rain. But now time to tidy them up and start tying in some of the new growth. Here you can see those shoots coming up from the base, and we're starting to tie these in and feed them through the framework. What we'll do is remove any dieback and older wood that's not looking too healthy and tie these new young growth in for the flowers next year. Predominant colour in the garden in August here is yellow. We get these starting to flower. Usually they've been quite badly droughted, and we have to water most of these borders, but not this year. Same with the tansy, grown really well this year. Just starting to come into flower now. Great drifts of this, old man's beard we call it in the UK, running through our borders. It's one of our hardy perennials. This is running to seed beautifully. Just look at the form of that as it runs to seed. Hairy seed pods forming, still with plenty of flower on this. It's in a shady spot, seeding beautifully. Really quite unusual and worth keeping just for the seed pods as well as the flowers, but it's really those lovely open long petals with this dark brown orange centre which makes this flower so unusual. There's plenty of this flower at the back of this little border, just catching the morning sunlight here. Spectacular buttercup yellow, great fronds of flowers held at around 4.5 feet. Forms almost a thick dense canopy at this time of year, and these will form beautiful fluffy seed heads which give you architectural structure in the garden right over winter. And the little border just on the side of the garden dining room that we showed you in a video a couple of weeks ago, absolutely dense now, growing up to around 5 feet. With this dense planting at this time of year, it's difficult to remember that this border was full of snowdrops and baby narcissi, spring bulbs, just scattered over the ground surface back in March and April this year, and then to be followed by this herbaceous growth. It's absolutely incredible how much growth occurs over the course of 4 or 5 months. Daylilies still flowering away. We've been deadheading these to keep them in flower, and that is a useful trick with daylilies. It does work. I have a couple here in the long border on the back of the cottage garden, looking out over the fields. It's the same plant, but look at the difference in colour of the different age of the flowers. The ones behind just going over, and today's fresh blossoms just coming out below it. What this vigorous growth this year has left us with is quite a lot of work. A lot of these plants we normally grow unsupported, but this year, because of the sheer volume of growth they've put on, a lot of them have gone over, and we're having to do a lot of cutting back as things start to collapse, particularly with the heavy rains, when you get this tall growth with big flower blossom on the top and then a tropical downpour, the weight of the water just sitting on the end of these growths tends to pull it right over. And that's what's happened to this lily. Yet to flower, tangle of growth, massive tansy growth behind it, just pushing it forward, and if we're not careful with this, it's going to get broken off before it even flowers, so we'll try and get some supports in there. Massive amount of work on, just as I said at the start of this video, down to the sheer volume of growth these plants have put on with the water that they've had drenched on them over these summer months.